I think this generation of Saab 9.3 and the 900 that came out before it is probably the most unloved version of Saab that ever has been. It came out at that time that GM took over and really started interfering with Saab and essentially compromising the Saab design team in Trollhättan into building a car based, of course, on cars like the Vauxhall Cavalier, the Vauxhall Vectra, the Saturn L series in America, if you know what that is. What Saab ended up building was the 900 in 1994 and then later on this 9.3, but it's essentially the same car. This is a facelifted version of the Saab 900. This 900 9.3 is known as the NG, but it's also known as the OG, which very sadly doesn't mean original gangster, it means old generation, because of course they then made the next follow-up 9.3 after this in 2003. Now, of course, this is the absolutely stunning three-door version. Most of them were five-door hatchbacks, but this is a three-door hatchback. Now, in my probably very likely controversial opinion, this is my favourite looking Saab there has ever been. I just think it's absolutely stunning. Beautiful design in three-door version. I think there's a reason that I really like this generation of Saab. One is that it was what was new when I was a kid, but also when I was about 16 or so, my dad bought a 900 five-door, and yes, it was a bit flawed, it had some issues, it was old, I think it was like a 500 quid car, but we both very quickly fell in love with it because it really was a lovely and different car. And I, of course, will say at this point, I bloody love a Saab, and I love all of them. Fight me in the comments if you think this is not such a great car, but I already love it, and I've barely driven it so far. This rear end is a superb bit of design. I absolutely love this massive fat C-pillar. A very sporty, muscular looking car, isn't it? You've got alloy wheels which in the traditional Saab way kind of look like three spokes, but they've had three more added, so I'm going to call these 3+3, but they've still got that very unique original Saab design to them. You've got a shark fin aerial here which apparently is empty and doesn't do anything, but Saab were trying to look all cool and BMW, so they added it. Instead, you've got this telescopic electrically operated old school aerial. For the 9.3 at the front, they updated this grille here, so you've got the Saab wings. You've got the badge which always fades off. In this case, it's completely gone, so it actually looks kind of right again because it's fully silver. The staple of a Swedish winter, which is the headlight wipers. Now, it doesn't do headlight washer, it just wipes it, but you know, that's great if it's raining, I guess, or you've got all the sludgy, horrible stuff on your lights, you can wipe that stuff away. This car is a 2001, so it's the very last of the UK lettering system, which is the Y-Reg, before it became a 51 plate after this for the late 2001. Now, you only have to get inside this car to realise that people who say this isn't a proper Saab are talking absolute bobbins, because there's absolutely nothing General Motors inside here. It's very Saab. The dashboard is as Saaby as it gets, with its sort of jet fighter-y styled cockpit, as we always mention. Now, I'm not sure how many jet fighters have fake wood on them and very comfy cream leather, but nevertheless, that's what it was inspired by. I mean, the sporty version of this car was called the Viggen, which was literally named after a Swedish jet fighter, Viggen meaning thunderbolt. You've got all of the cool kind of weird Saab features, like this active head restraint, which has this of a very odd shape on it, but you know, it's great for reducing whiplash in a collision, because of course Saab were very careful about safety. So you've got the night panel, which was actually introduced on the first version of this car, the 900, but it wasn't called the night panel until the 9.3. Now, the night panel is brilliant. It turns off all of the things that you don't need to see at night and just leaves on the speedometer, so you can see what speed you're doing, but everything else is gone. Obviously, if you start to run out of fuel or something, it will then light that fuel gauge back up and you'll be able to see it again. The ignition key is down here, so you start the car by turning the ignition in the centre console, and you also have to have your foot on the clutch because the car has to be in reverse before you can take the key out. That's sort of a bit like a steering lock, but it's a gearbox lock instead. Incidentally, I don't think this car has a steering lock, so if you did try to steal a Saab 9.3, as long as you reversed it away from the crime scene, you'd probably be able to get away. I don't know. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the steering lock doesn't work on this car. Some of the switchgear on this car, for example, the light switch here to the right hand side of the steering wheel, is actually out of an 80s Saab 900. So that is a proper original Saab switch. And of course it feels nice and chunky, as do all the other buttons. You know, they're all like the hazard button there, that just comes out in a very nice solid feeling. All of the switches for the CD player, like the bass, treble and fade, they come out when you press them. They're nicely sprung and you can just set the bass just so. You've got a 6-disc CD changer, of course, because every executive car in the early 2000s and late 90s had to have one of those. The Saab information display, which is basically a fancy trip computer, or the SID as it's known, does allow you to do all sorts of things. Like, for example, when you first turn the ignition on, you get a beeping noise to tell you to fasten your seatbelts. It also tells you when it's time for service, and you can switch between things like the outside temperature and the date, how many miles you've got left in the tank, your MPG, your miles per hour, your average miles per hour. You've also got a speed warning system as well. Underneath the SID, now it wouldn't be a modern GM era Saab without a pretty cool, interesting cup holder, and this 9.3 has one of those. It pops out like that, which is pretty cool. It's a very thin little thing, and not quite as mental as the one that came after, but nicely packaged there in the dashboard. Now this car is the SE, so it's a sort of middle of the road spec car. You had the S and you had the SE and you had the Aero, of course, which was the nice top spec car, but this has got lovely stuff in it, like the cream leather, automatic climate control, so I can set the temperature to whatever I like. Let's say I want it to be 19 degrees in here, I can do that. You've obviously got air conditioning, no heated seats in this particular car. The ventilation system, which apparently was up-rated for the Saab 9.3, so you get more airflow and better ventilation, is excellent because you can, of course, adjust these vents to any position you like, and there's many of them. You've got 2 there in the middle, 2 for the driver on that side, and 1 over there for the passenger. Of course, the seats are also very comfortable because that's something that Saab have always gotten right. No manufacturer really ever seems to manage to get both comfort and sportiness just right, and these seats are brilliant. They're dead comfortable and soft. The steering wheel, weirdly, although you can adjust it, only goes outwards and inwards, not up and down. Practicality, of course, you've got a nice little cubby here in the armrest, a glove box which is kind of normal sized, little door pockets, and the ashtray here, which has a little cigarette holder in it, which is really a old school feature, isn't it? So you can just pop your cigarette down there and let the ashes fall onto your leather gear gaiter and melt it away. Interestingly, this leather gear gaiter has seen better days, but then this car's done 123,000 miles, so although it's low mileage for age, it's not nothing, is it? I mean, Marcus, who lent me this car, he's had it for 11 years, and before that it was owned by one person before him, and he was using this as his daily driver for a long time. 50,000 miles on the clock he added, and I think it's been a pretty dependable car actually over those miles. Another Saab feature is the curved windscreen. Now, it's not quite as prominent as the original 900 from the 80s, but it definitely is there. The glass is curved and wraps around you slightly. It's got a nice solid kind of feeling to it. When you open the door and when you shut the door, it feels quite Saab-like. In the back, with this being a coupe version, you would think that it would be not very spacious, but actually, with the way that this roof is designed, because it kind of goes quite far back, flat across the top of my head, and then it goes down, I've got decent headroom, and I've actually also got legroom. You know, and they did think that people would actually sit here because there's an armrest, which is nice and comfortable. You've got a little ashtray at the back, some ventilation, pockets on the back of the seat, little cubby holes on the side. Although you wouldn't imagine that this 3-door version would be great to sit in the back, I'm going to give it some good points. This coupe could really do with a seatbelt butler, because it's quite hard to reach back and get that seatbelt. Fire up the 9.3, and into life comes the 2.2 litre diesel. Yeah, interestingly, it was the only engine made by GM. Everything else was actually a Saab engine. But of course, most of these cars were the petrol versions, which had the Saab H engine, which was a slanted inline 4. This time in a transverse layout, not the very strange longitudinal way, because of course this car is front-wheel drive, just like Saabs of yesteryear. The Saab H engine was based on the Saab B engine, which was originally a Triumph engine, which was a British manufacturer, but it is known as a proper Saab engine. And of course this has a GM unit in it, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it means the parts are easy to come by, and if you want to repair this diesel, you can. It's quite a basic diesel engine. Yes, it's got an EGR valve and things like that, but of course there's no DPM. Yeah, the petrol engine, obviously it was a turbocharged engine, which was important for Saab because that's what made Saab special in the engine department. There was various flavours of it. You had the low pressure turbo, which had 150 horsepower, high pressure turbo, which had 180, and then the high output turbo, which was the hot Saab, that had 200 horsepower. And then finally, you had the Viggen, which was the absolute speed machine for its day, all through the front wheels, which is mental, had 230 horsepower. Even that 200 horsepower model could do 0 to 60 in 6.9 seconds, so it was rapid for the late 90s. And of course it had that turbo surge. I kind of wish that I'd driven a petrol version, because I think that the very sort of agricultural vibrating nature of this diesel engine has sort of taken away from the relaxing refinement that you might expect from a sort of posh car like this, or ostensibly posh car like this Saab. It is coupled to a car that feels quite solid. You know, as it cruises along, it's got pretty nice suspension for the motorway. It in some ways feels slightly better quality than the later 9.3. Like this door handle, for example, feels solid and it's not all creaky like the newer version. There are some creaks and rattles in this car, but you know, it's done 123,000 miles and it's coming up to 25 years old. That indicator sound is just so loud. So strangely loud. But you know, I've got cruise control and I've got air conditioning, which I presume doesn't work because it's an old car. I am roasting today. It's worth at this point mentioning some of the changes that they made for the 9.3 over the 900, because they were in the driving department. The steering is apparently quicker on this 9.3. It feels quite stable actually in the corners, and it doesn't, the bolsters hold you in, doesn't roll that much. It does feel alright actually. Okay, it's I lost a bit of traction there on the uneven surface, but it's alright. I mean, the steering, I think this is just a problem with all high mileage Saabs of this era, that the steering has gone a bit like that. You know, it's not very responsive, but once you get past that the deadness on centre, it does actually kick in with that slightly quicker rack that this car has. Perfectly enjoyable. Now this car has got a 5-speed manual gearbox, which is a bit notchy, and this one's not in the greatest of health either. It does grind a bit if you don't let the clutch in for long enough. Of course, also Saab were very keen on safety, as we all know. That's what they prided themselves on. But they hadn't quite got there yet with certainly with the original 900 that this car was based on. And they did improve it a lot for this second generation. It achieved a 4-star Euro NCAP, which isn't the maximum, but they increased the strength of the A-pillars, the sills, the doors. They put side airbags in as standard. It was just as safe as the German cars of the time. None of them were really achieving the 5 stars. It's also worth mentioning this car has got an absolutely cavernous boot, which only gets bigger when you put the seats down. It could be used as a big van, this car, even though it's the coupe. It's actually very spacious in the back. It must have felt pretty cool buying one of these new back in the day, just knowing that you had something absolutely and utterly different to everything else on the road. I think that the people who'd obviously always owned Saabs, they would have been apprehensive about getting behind the wheel of, you know, a 900 or a 9.3, but I think once they'd sat inside, they would have been quite happy with what they'd seen. You know, it's still, even down to the fact that some of the switchgear is still there from the older 900. Okay, maybe it doesn't quite feel the same high quality as the original Saab, but it looks epic, the design of this 3-door at least. Would I buy one of these? Well, I kind of think, yeah, probably I would, because it's just so different in this beautiful 3-door form. That's the one I'd go for, and I'd definitely get a petrol, ideally like a higher powered one, 180, 200 horsepower. I'd like to have a go with the Vigan, but I suspect that the Vigan's just too powerful, especially through the front wheels. But yeah, it's just totally unique car, and it does still feel pretty solid and reliable and well built. As I say, this is a high mileage car. It's definitely done its service to the world, to Marcus, who's done 50,000 miles in it and not had all that much go wrong really. Had an issue with the EGR valve, and as you might expect. At the end of the day, this is still a Swedish car, built in Trollhättan in Sweden. The convertible made in Finland, I might add. Also, Marcus, who owns this car, is actually an architect. I always joke about Saabs being an architect car, and obviously if it wasn't so boiling hot today, I'd be in my turtleneck, wouldn't I? But Marcus is actually an architect and an architecture lecturer as well, and he chose this car. If you want to see a review of the older 900, then that's going to be up there. If you want to see a review of the newer 9.3, that's going to be down there. So once again, an absolutely massive thank you to Marcus for lending me this car, and to you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.